We're up to the Mishnah now on Daf Mem Tesam and Beis. Now, the subject of this Mishnah we've already discussed, we've already covered it, and that is that if you chop down the wood from an Asherah tree and then you use it as fuel, then if you heat up a brand new oven, the oven has to be smashed because it is completed by the Atzei Asherah. But if it's an old oven, then you just have to wait till it cools down. Not told me many waits, and he took the branches from the AvodaZara tree, from the Asher tree, Asur Bano, Hisik Ben Satanur, Im Charash Yutatzim, Yoshan Yutzan, Ofabo Apas, and we gave two interpretations of Ofos Apas. Let's just review them very quickly. Either he didn't wait in the case of the new oven until it cooled off. So the heat from the wood that was generated by the wood of Asherah is still giving him the benefit of providing the heat for baking his bread, and therefore the bread is asur. Or alternatively, we're talking about a brand new oven, and it was created by the wood of the Asher tree, and therefore that oven, anytime you use it for the rest of its life, you are benefiting from the Asher tree, and therefore for Basapas, Asur Bano, Nesar Bacheros, Kulam Asurus Bahano. And we don't apply bittul here because it's davar chashuv. Then Rabbi Eliezer Omer, what are we worried about? You're worried about the hanoah that he gets from the fuel that was generated by the wood of the Asherah tree. Kulam is yolech hanoah li'amamelech. Let him take that sum of money, the market value of the wood from the Asherah tree, and throw it into the Dead Sea. Rabbanan say ein pidyon lavoros kocham. Not al menu karkor. Okay. Now, he chips off a piece of wood from the Asherah tree, which is also manoah, and he makes it into a weaver's pick, which is called a karkor, osir bana. So obviously, the karkor itself is also bana, like the wood that comes from the Asherah tree, but orgas habeged osir bana. He wove a garment with this karkor, with this weaver's pick, and now the garment is also bana. So bacherim, bacher bacheris is kulam asur bana, because a garment is a davar chashuv, it's not bottle. So now we have to figure out why the Mishnah felt compelled to reiterate in the Sefer what we already know in the Reisha. We need both. If we only had the case of baking the bread in an oven that was heated by the wood of the Asherah tree, that's where Rabbi Eliezer said that you're allowed to do this trick of eating the bread and throwing the value of the wood that you got from the Asherah tree into the Yam HaMelech. Why? Because the be'idna de kagamra pas, at the moment that the pas was baked, is kali leili surah. Where is the wood of the Asherah tree? The wood of the Asherah tree was turned into fuel. You burnt it up. You created a fire. The fire heats up the oven. So at the moment that the bread is baking from the heat, there is no wood. The wood is completely gone, completely consumed. Avol karkor, but in the case of the weaver's pick, where is the weaver's pick? Did it go up in smoke? The isali survieta, it's still intact. Is I might have thought Modi L'Rabbanan Rabbelosa is not going to be so makil. In the case where isal ve'ene, it's still be'en, it's still intact, and therefore Rabbi Eliezer held that the begadim are asur. And not only they're asur, but you can't do this trick of Yolech Hanol Yam HaMelech. Kamash Malan, the Mishnah wants to tell me that even in the case of the karkor, which is BN, nevertheless, Rabbi Eliezer is Mekil and Yolech Hanol Yam HaMelech. The Yashmin and karkor, if we only had karkor b'hakam, Rabbanan, when did Rabbanan say that we don't accept Rabbi Eliezer's kula of Yolech Hanol Yam HaMelech? That's in the case of the karkor because it's BN. Avol b'pas, in the case of baking your bread with a fuel, is completely gone after the burning of the Atzei Asherah. Emamodu leila rabbanan tzricha. We need a book. Rab Chia, etc., etc. Halacha ki Rabbi Eliezer. We paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. We saw this already before. Ika di Amri. Rav Chizda. Amali Abba bar Rav Chizda. Hachi Amr. Halacha ki Rabbi Eliezer. Fine. Rav Hada bar Ava. Lo shanu el pas. Aval chavis lo. You have a barrel of yain nesach, and it gets mixed up with other barrels of yain shel heter. Here, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that there's no heter of yolech hanol yamamelech, and Rav Chizda Amar afilu chavis muteres. So what's the svara here that underlies this statement of the Gemara that we have to be more machmir in the case of a chavis shel yain nesach? He says the following. Rav Chizda's point is that Rabbi Eliezer's device, he calls it device, Yolech Hanol HaMelech, is effective just one second. Is effective only with respect to the bread baked with the Asherah wood, where the original substance is not discernible. But in the case of intermingled barrels, the forbidden substance, meaning the Nayin Nesach, is tangibly present in the mixture. And therefore, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that Ein Podim Es Avodas Kolchov. Hahu Gavra dis Arev Lechavita Diei Nesa Bechamre. So one barrel of Yain Nesa got mixed up with other barrels. Also, L'Kamdi Rav Chizda, Omer Rav Chizda Shkol Arba Zuzi Shodi V'Nara V'Nishterei. If you take 4 zuz and cast it into the river, apparently the Yain Nesach barrel was worth on the market 4 zuz, and we can accept the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer, and even be makil like Rabbi Eliezer, because halacha kamoso, even in a case of barrels, although the forbidden wine is there. Mishnah. Ketzim avatal. How do we accomplish bittul? Again, the akum is going to be mavatal and nullify the avodas kol chavim. Kirsem means he pruned something off of the idol. Vizered, or he trimmed a part of the idol. Or nato makil, he took the makil. Remember, we spoke about the makil, which is the symbol of divinity and power, and he took it away, or sharvit, or he took away a sharvit. Now, I think a sharvit, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you have a translation in your Gemara, but sharvit, I think, is the sheath that holds the makil. Afilu Allah, or even if he takes a leaf away from the tree, hareza b'tel. So we're going to see here that what he stripped away from this, let's say, Asherah tree, is something that he wanted for his benefit. And the fact that he took this idol and he stripped off part of it for his own benefit, he's taking the twigs and he's going to make a fire out of it, then it means he is nullifying the idol. Sheepa litzarka, but if on the other hand he wants to beautify the idol and he shaves off chips of wood, to groom the idol, then asura. Why? Because obviously he still, admires the idol and he's not nullifying it. Shalol litzarka. Shalol litzarka means, but if he's taking off these chips and, pruning the idol, but not for the purpose of the idol, it doesn't help the idol at all, then muteris, that's called bittul. Gemara asks the following question: Oson shvoim mat eale. Okay, you told me that by chipping off the chips in order to groom the idol, and he still has this great awe for the idol, so it's not bittul. So the idol itself remains asur. There's no bittul. But what about the chips themselves? Pligi Rav Huna, etc., etc. There's going to be two opinions in a controversy regarding the chips themselves. Chadomar asurim, since they came from the idol, they still have the same status as the idol, like the wood that we chopped, that we cut off from the branches of the Asherah tree. V'chadomar mutar. I mean, that's a big chiddush. Why should these chips be mutar? And yet the Gemara supports this opinion by saying Tanya keman dior mutar v'sanya. We learned to the Brayso ovi kolcham sheshifa avodas kolcham litzar kol. It was for his purposes. So he's obviously being mevatel the idol. He ushvahem mutarim. Everything's mutar. Litzar kol. But if he was grooming the idol to beautify the idol, he asura. The idol itself remains prohibited, but shvahem mutarim. The chips are permitted. And the question is why? He says that the reason why the chips are permitted is because his intention is to take these chips after beautifying the idol and grooming it and throwing the chips into the garbage. He has no intention to continue worshiping the chips. So it means the chips really, these shavings from the idol, are a separate entity once he removes them. It's like you go to a barber shop and he cuts your hair, and then what does he do with the hair on the ground? He throws it in the garbage. He sweeps it up. Right? However, Yisrael sheship avos kacham bein tzarkol v'tzokah, he shover asur. There's no bittul through a Jew. A Jew cannot be mevatel an idol, and therefore, when he chips it off, it doesn't matter whether he's doing it for the grooming or he's doing it for his own purposes. It still remains us, even the chips themselves. Itmar avodas kol chom shirishtabra Rav Omar tzorich levatel kol kesam v'kesam. Now, if a guy takes an idol and he deliberately smashes it, that's bittul. Ein lecha bittul gadol mizeh. He's obviously nullifying the idol. But if the idol just falls off a ledge through natural causes, a wind or whatever it might be, but not through human intervention, then there's no bittul. And therefore, Rav says if there's no bittul, he now has to go ahead and do a separate bittul on the idol, but the idol is now smashed into pieces. Every single segment of the idol needs its own bittul. Shmuel Amar, avodas kachavim eina betela ela derech dilasa. If the idol was broken down in a natural way, meaning there was no human intervention, then it's only, let me give an example. It's only in a natural thing. Let's say, for example, a branch of an Asherah tree withers with time, it gets dried up, then it's bata. But if something unnatural happens, but through nature, meaning not through human intervention, then that's not bittul. In fact, the Gemara, I don't understand. Just 1 second, sorry. Oh, I understand. Forget about, the parts of the Asherah tree that dry up through the natural process of drying up. What about the Asherah itself? So if you read Shmuel's statement carefully, He seems to be saying that if it was derech dilasa, let's say the tree with the course of time sheds its leaves, then it is batel. Frekta Gemara, on the contrary, derech dilasa mimevatla. He didn't indicate any sort of nullification vis-a-vis the Asherah tree itself. The leaves withered away and fell off. Fine. So the leaves lose their status of AvodaZara. That's okay. But why the Asherah tree? Where's the bittul? Elahachi come. We have to reformulate Shmuel. Ein avodas kacham tzricha libatel ela derek dilasa. In other words, if the idol broke on its own, like the example I gave before where it fell off and smashed on the ground, you don't need bittul. Says Shmuel, if the idol couldn't protect itself, then it's worthless. So it's batel. But if with the course of time, the leaves dry up or fall from the tree, the Asherah tree needs a bittul. Because that was a natural process and the tree still remains intact. Lema b'hakamifli, what are Rav and Shmuel at the heart of the matter arguing about? Mar savar ovdim l'shvarim. Rav holds that even after an idol is shattered, they still worship its pieces. Go figure that out. How dumb could idolatry be? Pardon the expression. Umar savar, but Shmuel gives at least a measure of intelligence to the idol worshippers. Ain't ovdin l'shvarim. Once it's fragmented, they're not going to worship it. And the fact that the idol couldn't protect its own life means that it's worthless, and that's bittul. Lo, the Gemara rejects it. Kuli alma, again, it's just hard for me to get the words out of my mouth. Kuli alma ovdin l'shvarim. I'll tell you the truth. What I'm going to tell you is worthless, but this is what I'm feeling now. Human beings fall, Humpty Dumpty, and they die. Idols also die. We respect the human body even after death. And we bury it and so forth and so on. In the case of an idol, if it broke, then we have to continue giving it that respect and worshiping it even though it's shattered into pieces. Now, what do these pieces look like? Maybe these pieces are full pieces that could be reattached. What was the name of that toy? Potato Head. You remember Potato Head? You take apart the pieces and then you put them back together again. But these are total fragments. I mean, it's mamish smash like the glass you see here on the streets. Little teeny pieces. Mar Sava Shivrei Shvarim Asurim. Umar Sava Shivrei Shamudar. Shmuel makes a lot of sense. Very compelling logic. He says these small teeny pieces of glass or wood or whatever they are, pottery, they can't be put together again. And, maybe if you have sort of fragments that could be put together again, that's one thing. And you maintain the deference and the respect that you have for the idol, for the fragments in this case, but not, fragments of fragments. Finally, we get some logic here. Even Rav agrees that these small, teeny fragments are meaningless. But Mar Sover came in the head Yod Yochalach Ziram Lo Betelu. Mar Sover Ein Avodas Kocham Betela El Der Kidilasa Dainu Urche Holav Kidilasa He V'Ein Tzrichim Levat. So now we have professionals who are very well trained in putting together broken, like art objects, and they can put them together even after they were fragmented. But then you have the average layman, he'll use some adhering, of force or whatever factor. So Rav holds that, you know what? How small are these fragments? If they're so small that you've got to hire an absolute professional, that's one thing. But if your average layman could put together these fragments, then they're still empowered with the power of AvodaZara, so to speak. But Shmuel says that if you have leaves on the asher tree that dried up with the course of time, that's called derech dilasa, that's a natural process. Then you don't need bittul. Again, not on the asher itself, but on the trees. Bittul has to be some sort of an action in which man indicates that this deity is no longer significant. The fact that the trees, leaves wither with time and fall from the tree, that doesn't indicate that the human being, you know, machmit the head, he said, oh, this idol is worthless. Holav gedilasahi. But you know what? If something unnatural happened, all of a sudden the tree, gets hit by a bulldozer, or an idol smashes on the ground because it fell, ain't it tzricha bittul? It doesn't even need bittul. And the reason for that is because if this is an unnatural situation and it's unusual for the idol to be smashed in this way, then why didn't the idol defend itself? If it couldn't protect itself, then it's not a deity. Hadron Olecha Kol Atzlomim, and we're up to Perek Dalid of Masechet AvodaZara, which is called Rabbi Shmuel. And the Mishnah here on the bottom of Memtesim Beis records the statement of Rabbi Shmuel, who says, Sholosh Avonim Zu B'tzad, you found 3 stones, one next to the other, B'tzad Markulis, right next to the idol of Markulis Asuros. So as we assume that these stones were designated for the idol worship of Markulis, from the fact that they were heaped up right next to Markulis. Ushtayim mutaros. If you only found 2 stones, then apparently that's not enough for the AvodaZara, and therefore you're permitted. Sheniros imo asuros v'sheiniros imo asus. It all depends on the close proximity of the stones to the idol called Markulis. So this will stop for today, Mitzvah Hashem. Tomorrow noontime. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.